Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in to the Box Office Buds for a very special weekly episode. I'm still dressed in a very silly Superman costume, but we're not going to be angry at James Gunn today. We're not going to be angry at Zack Snyder today. We're not going to be angry at Smooth Brain Jurassic World fans today. Instead, we're going to talk about the what ifs in the great movie world, because Brad Pitt, star of F1, a really fun movie. You should go see it in theaters when you can. Came out and said in all these media press tours he's been giving, came out and said him and Tom Cruise were going to be cast in Ford versus Ferrari before things happened.
Say what?
Conflicts and stuff happened the other way. Obviously, it was not Brad
crazy.
Pitt and Tom Cruise in Ford versus Ferrari. So we thought, out of all the great Hollywood what ifs, let's throw a few out there and see what could have happened. Could it have been a better movie, a worse movie? Are we happy it went the way it did, or should it have been the fantasy cast of what it could be? I'm excited to talk a little bit about Hollywood what ifs. Alger, you got a good what if story of something you almost got out there?
I have too many. Yeah, you guys, I love a what if. I love casting what ifs. It's very fun. Casting corners are a blast. To me, what's interesting is Ford versus Ferrari out the gate didn't make nearly the amount of money it would have if it had Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. It would have made
right?
so
I agree.
much money.
Although Christian Bale is phenomenal in that movie, and I
He
don't
is
see
great.
Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt pulling off
Christian
that
Bale
role
is
the
a
way
better
Christian Bale
actor.
did.
I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Christian Bale is a better actor than Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, in my opinion.
Who's what role do you think in Ford versus Ferrari?
I think that's Pitt's role.
That Pitt is playing Christian Bale and then
Yeah.
Matt Damon is Tom Cruise?
Yes.
I have it the opposite way. Is that right, TJ? Do we know what... Yeah, I have it the opposite way, where I think Brad Pitt's the Matt Damon character.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they would have swapped roles and you would have seen it at different theaters. I don't know. It's a theater thing. Anyway.
That's a big what if.
Yeah, people do that. But I just think, like, that's a big what if that could have really, really spawned.
And you're
some
right
box
in the
office
fact
buzz.
that you love listening and hearing what ifs, because they're all over the place. And there's a lot that you find out years, decades afterwards, and you're like, that would have changed the movie completely. Yeah. Even now, Michael Cera, I just saw a TikTok where Michael Cera is sitting there talking about how he avoided franchises earlier in his career and he'd be more open to it now. And one of the franchises he was asked to be a part of was the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them franchise.
Interesting.
And he didn't say what role. And I'm sitting there thinking, what role could he have gotten? And I think it's the sidekick role. That's
That
played
makes
by
sense. Yeah,
what's
sure.
his face? The
He's better than Josh Gad, but
Yeah,
they have
yeah,
the same type.
other Josh
Dan
Gad.
Fogler.
Imagine
I don't
Michael.
know. I kind of think it's the Eddie Redmayne role.
You think so?
I do.
Michael Cera in the Eddie Redmayne role.
Yeah. He was like, throw on that British accent. Let's go, boy.
It'd be tough. But
Interesting.
what ifs are a lot of fun. Do you have a favorite what if that you can remember?
I do. I just can't think of it.
I mean,
off the top
even
of my head right now. I've
even
been put on the
Viggo
spot.
Mortensen as Aragorn was a last-second replacement, and that is arguably the best casting of our lives. is him as Aragorn. So
perfect.
there's a lot of really
you
fun
know
what
what?
ifs out there.
I do. We talked about Ghostbusters on the previous episode, and John Belushi was originally going to be one of the Ghostbusters, and his death changed the whole lineup for that movie.
There's a lot, but let's dive in. So I have 5 what ifs that I've written down, famous what ifs that are out there, and I want to ask you guys, would this make the movie better, or would it affect the box office in a better way? And the first one is arguably the least interesting to me. Probably would have worsened the box office completely, maybe even changed the tenor of this entire franchise, because Tom Selleck was supposed to be Indiana Jones.
Wow.
Well, that would have been wildly different.
Would have changed the course of Tom Selleck's career, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Vastly.
Or it would have been a huge flop.
I don't know.
I don't know about Indiana Jones.
I mean,
He might be too suave.
He would have had way too much of a stash going on. Like
You don't think he would have shaved for the
I wouldn't
role?
believe that guy is scared of snakes. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
I think it would have drastically been negative for both the box office and the film. Harrison Ford was obviously the perfect Indiana Jones.
Yeah, what makes Indiana Jones great is that he's not super cool. He does what he needs to be done.
Yeah, he's cool in the fact that he's calm under pressure.
Right, yes.
Not cool in the fact as he walks into the room and be like, oh my God, that's Tom Selleck.
Yeah,
Right.
he's not tipping his hat to the ladies in every scene, you know.
Yeah, I am definitely, like, if I saw that movie with Tom Selleck, I'm just watching Tom.
So we're
That's
saying
Tom
box
Selleck.
office gets destroyed.
Destroyed.
Yeah,
terrible,
not as
terrible,
good.
terrible.
And we're
It-
never
it
getting
wouldn't have the magic.
We're never getting Kingdom of the Crystal Skull if Tom
Well,
Selleck is Indiana
Right.
Jones.
Well,
Gotcha.
might not even get Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Speaking of a movie that did not get any sequels after the fact, but it still stands the test of time. Arguably the biggest role of this character's career, this actress's career. And would it be changed and different? Would we think of the actress who almost got it differently? Could she become the next Julia Roberts? Because instead of Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, it's Diane Lane.
Oh, wow. Well, she went on to have an amazing career anyway.
Yeah, but it ain't Julia Roberts.
I don't think it would have affected the box office. But man, nobody's as good as Julia Roberts in that role. She's utterly perfect, and I would see it though. Diane Lane was pretty hot when she was young.
Diane Lane's still hot now. I don't know what you're talking about. I've actually, spoiler alert, not spoiler alert, inside scoop, inside baseball story. When I was working at the Westwood Whole Foods off of UCLA when I first moved out here, I was slinging deli sides. Okay, and who came by more than once? There were two famous actresses that came by more than once. One of them was Diane Lane.
Wow.
I would serve Diane Lane almost every 2 weeks, feeding her whole family. The nicest woman you've ever met, and obviously beautiful, but the nicest lady, and didn't have to be nice. Like, didn't have to be as like charming and outgoing. I'm just a 23-year-old kid scooping potato salad for her, and she was wicked nice.
Love to hear that.
The other one was Talia Shire, who genuinely, my dad almost moved out to LA when I told him that Talia Shire comes in my Whole Foods, because that's been a dream girl for him since he was growing up. The wife of Rocky.
Who doesn't love
I mean,
Rocky?
of course, Talia Shire's
Adrian
the best.
in Rocky, yeah. And before we move on, I will say, because our producer wants us to, Diane Lane was Martha
Superman.
in some of the worst Supermans that we've ever had. So thankfully, Diane Lane, you
most
chose
recent
that role.
ones.
Hopefully you made a good dime off of that one. That's not going in the reel of Diane Lane performances. We're not getting Martha from the terrible Supermans that Zack Snyder made. Do you want to move on to another What If?
I would love to.
Okay.
Let's do it.
What about Leonardo DiCaprio?
My guy.
Oh,
You've
what
heard of
was
that
he
name
almost
before. He's been in 1 billion movies and turned down probably 1 billion more.
Yeah. No
But
doubt.
this drastically changes the movie and probably makes our lives better if Leo gets this role, because it would have taken away the best role of Mark Wahlberg's life and maybe really dampened the career of a terrible, terrible actor. But Leo DiCaprio was almost Dirk Diggler in Boogie Nights.
Really?
And I think that
He
takes...
would have. That's not a role for Leonardo DiCaprio.
I think it takes that movie to the next level,
I
Kelvin.
think
I
Leo's
really do.
a character actor who doesn't get to
What?
be a character actor. Leo's an exceptional actor. In Django, if he can do what he did in Django, I believe he would crush Dirk Diggler.
I just imagine him pulling his dick out at the end and being like, I don't buy it.
You don't buy that he has a penis?
That he has a Dirk Diggler penis.
Sure.
I will say though, when Leo is the character actor, Leo is the character actor now, Alche. But back then, Leo was very much in like the gangs of New York. Like he was
Romeo
not.
and Juliet, Titanic.
He was
So
not
what?
the weirdo then, and I think it would have been huge for Leo. I think that movie Boogie Nights has definitely a cult following behind it, but I think Boogie Nights does even better if Leo's the head of it.
I don't think it would have changed anything for Boogie Nights, but it would have made it infinitely more fun for me. I honestly though, like, Mark Wahlberg's not a bad actor. He's just a tool.
Mark Wahlberg's that wall has more flavor than Mark
I
Wahlberg
don't
does.
agree.
I disagree. He's
He
great
has
in The
range.
Departed.
Yeah, he's good.
Okay. Speaking of Leo, let's move on to the
I
next
Heart
one.
Huckabees.
Because Leo was Jack in the Titanic, as we all know.
Sure was.
But that
He was
didn't,
Jack in the Titanic.
that did not go to Leo originally.
Did the Titanic finish?
Instead, it was rumored to be Interstellar's own Matthew McConaughey.
That would have been
In
very
Titanic?
I think that would have been terrible. I think that would have been terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
been a lot
Titanic-
cooler if he
Terrible.
was.
Titanic was the right. It was the right flavor of him and Winslet. It was perfect.
I don't know what happened to Matthew McConaughey, but for the first 20 years of Matthew McConaughey's career, he was not an actor. And then suddenly he strapped on boots where he made a deal with the devil, because that guy is wonderful now and wasn't so much those first few decades of his career. So him in Titanic would have been a weird choice.
It would have been a choice. It would have been weird. I mean, he was just doing rom-com after rom-com after rom-com. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
and he's like a good old Southern boy. Like, it would have been a really
It would have
weird,
been a left
would have
field
been a
choice
very
for sure.
different feel.
For
Well,
sure.
the biggest, weirdest what if, the reason why I've saved it for last, it's because when I got this list from our producer, TJ, and we thank him for putting together this list, even though I've lambasted most of the choices here, I will say the biggest one that had my mind a-going, that when I looked at it, I was like, that's stupid, but then it sat there and I thought about it for a while and now I can't unsee it type thing. Jack Nicholson's one of the best actors of all time. The
Yeah,
Shining
unquestionably.
The Shining might be his pivotal role, unless you want to go One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Who was going to be?
But The Shining is almost tied to Jack. You can't untie it.
Of course.
But just close your eyes and imagine a world where that character is played by the late, great Robin Williams. And I think it's a world that is spectacular.
Now that's one I could actually get behind.
Yeah.
Robin Williams is one of the best actors we've ever had as well in both dramatic and comedic roles. He's incredible.
Yeah.
Also, almost the Riddler. Am I wrong?
That I don't know.
I think he was almost the Riddler before Jim Carrey took the role.
Well,
I could totally see that, but I don't know.
I think he was the Riddler when Marlon Wayans was going to be Robin.
That's insane.
Pretty
I
wild.
don't want to see that movie, but I think he would have been excellent.
yeah.
Because he's just that good and that wild and that much of a live wire. Jack Nicholson, though, has more of a dangerous quality to him that I think
totally agree.
is much more effective for that film.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I will say Robin Williams, it was more of a quiet, dangerous, but whatever that movie was where he plays like the photo
1
editor
hour
guy,
photo.
Yeah, he's
What
an
a good
evil
one.
MFer in that one, man.
I mean,
And
he's
he pulls
he
it
He
off.
went through a
exceptional.
phase.
Robin Williams is unbelievable.
Yeah.
One of the most talented people to ever walk this earth.
Yeah.
But-
He would have brought a lightness to the movie before it goes off the deep end, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That may
It
have been
probably would have made it more
very
comedic
different.
in that first half, which would have been interesting.
right.
Well, that's all I got for you, folks.
Hold on. I thought of one.
Okay.
I thought of one I couldn't think of before. It was the Spider-Man 4 that never happened. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4. Are you aware of this? It was going to be Bruce Campbell, who had been in all 3 of the other movies, was going to turn out to have been Mysterio,
Really?
and John Malkovich as the Vulture.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that would have been an amazing Spider-Man 4.
But Spider-Man 3 was so horrendously bad that
They
they were
never
like,
got
we'll
to
pass.
make it."
Thanks so much.
They were like, we're going to just recast the whole thing.
Leave it to Kellerman, where we talk about all these greats like Titanic and The Shining, and he brings it back to Spider-Man 4
Hey,
potential.
Malkovich, come on.
Sam Raimi, Malkovich?
Okay. Well, that's all we got for the What If show. Next week, it's going to be a tough week. I'm not going to lie. If you guys don't watch the box office buzz next week, I don't blame you. Because next week, it's the Smurfs. We have to talk about a whole entire episode
Hold
of
on a
the
second. What are you
Smurfs.
talking about? Stop.
What?
And
Next
I know
week
what
is
you did last
Fantastic
summer.
4.
No, it's
No.
not. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's 2 weeks.
I know what you did last summer.
Do you?
I do. Do you?
The
It's a great week. It's going to be a great week.
Listen, it's the Smurfs. The next week is going to be headlined by the Smurfs. Rihanna's The Smurfs.
This
And
guy.
that's all we got. Leave it to TJ. He's the one that doesn't have I Know What You Did Last Summer on the graphic. I don't know what more you want me to say. But that's it for the box office buds. And we'll see you next week when we talk about the Smurfs and apparently I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Go see Superman.